Cleared from dry dock, Captain.
Acknowledged, Helm. Set a course for Vulcan. Warp 4.
Course laid in, sir.
Engage.
Well, it's not a secret that I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and over the years I tried out several games that were set in this amazing sci-fi universe. Other genres had some good entries like the Star Trek Elite 4 series and Star Trek Online, but us strategy game fans had been left in the dust for a bit, with most of the good strategy Star Trek games being too old to really get into nowadays. Thankfully, the modding community came to the rescue, and there's tons of Star Trek related mods out there for a wide range of titles. Today I want to focus on two mods in particular, made by the same team of dedicated Star Trek fans, Stellar Parallax Productions. They're both made for Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion, a game most strategy fans must have at least heard of. It's a space RTS/4X hybrid game, which pits 6 factions against each other in large-scale space warfare with some glorious space battles. It also has an open modding policy, and the team behind today's mods made some excellent use out of it. Let's see what this dedicated group of Star Trek fans has worked on for the past few years. The first mod I want to talk about today is already quite famous in the modding community, and most large gaming magazines already wrote articles about it.
Research complete.
Star Trek Armada III came out a couple of years ago, but the modding team kept updating and adding new features to it until the recent release, which is called Star Trek Armada III Uprising. It adds in custom models, animations, sounds, effects and technologies, and is set in the next generation Deep Space Nine and Voyager times. It can actually be a little hard to play because it's so much fun to just zoom in on ships and structures and admire the detail or watch some spectacular battles. When you do start to play, it actually feels less like a mod and more like a real Star Trek game. There's 5 different factions to play around with: the Federation, the Klingons, the Romulans, the Cardassians and the almighty Borg. Not only does every faction have their own UI, but they play quite different from each other, with each having their strengths and weaknesses. For instance, the Federation can dominate the markets with their economic know-how, but lag behind a bit when it's time to start pumping out ships to defend their borders. The Klingons have very powerful weapons and can muster very strong battleships, but tend to have a disadvantage when it comes to their infrastructure. The Romulans can use subterfuge technologies and spy on their adversaries, and have some powerful capital ships, but they require a lot more micromanagement than the other factions. The Cardassians have the most interesting technology tree, where they can choose to go with Cardassian or Dominion technology, each with their pros and cons. And the Borg are overall just OP. Their capital ships are so heavily armored and powerful that you'll need a bunch of your best ships just to be able to defeat 1 or 2 of them. Their only weakness is that they're quite slow to start out, but once they get going they can become an unstoppable force, and you may need to team up with other factions to be able to defeat them. Each faction has their own specific ship classes, which you may remember from the show. The Federation's Galaxy class, the Borg's Tactical Cubes or the Klingons' Voyager class are all present here, each with some spectacular looking models and sounds, and all ships have specific abilities they can use, provided they have enough antimatter aboard them. You can also summon some of your favorite characters from the TV shows, and it's just a delight to hear Captain Picard or Captain Janeway from the Federation say some iconic lines when you go into warp or encounter an enemy fleet. Other than the more iconic ships and captains, you can expect to see faction-specific vessels like the Romulan Telshar Strikecraft or the Federation's Miranda and Akira class ships. The mod also adds in its own soundtrack, which consists of remastered versions from the soundtrack Armada 1 and 2 games, and some tracks from the Starfleet Command games. Together with all the different sound effects for weapons fire, ship warp engines, etc., it goes a long way to transforming Sins of a Solar Empire into an authentic feeling Trek universe. Faction-specific announcers just make the whole experience that much more engaging.
Negotiation is irrelevant.
There's a bunch of gameplay changes as well. For instance, all the factions have their own unique tech trees specific for their race, and these feel authentic to the TV shows as well. Another thing is that ships fight in a more authentic swirling and dodging kind of way, like you would see in the TV shows, rather than the way original Sins did it, which was spaceships sitting there and firing at each other. Other little stuff includes the resources being changed to elements you would find in the Trek universe, such as dilithium, and most of the minor races make an appearance as well in the form of pirates or special events. They added in lore-specific maps, and it feels awesome acting out the Battle of Kittimer, the Battle of Wolf 359, or other major battles from the shows, and maybe putting your own twist on it. If you are just the least bit a Star Trek fan, you simply must try out the Star Trek Armada 3 mod for yourself. I spent around 50 hours on it, and I keep coming back to it because it's just so much fun. The best way to experience it is in multiplayer with some friends over a Discord channel, but if you want to play it single player with or against the AI, you won't be disappointed either. The second mod for today is Ages of the Federation. This mod is not complete yet and is currently in the beta phase, but can still have a lot of fun with it. It offers two playable races, the United Federation of Planets and the Klingon Empire, with a third one, the Romulan Star Empire, confirmed for being worked on, and a fourth being teased on the ModDB page. Minor races like the Zindi, Ferengi, Vulcans and Andorians can also be spotted around the maps, and speaking of which, this mod also adds in their lore-specific maps for you to play around with. The Federation faction is the most complete at this time, and you can hear sound effects and voices from the TV series coming out of your speakers if you play as them. Unlike Star Trek Armada, this mod takes place between the Enterprise series and the original series time eras, and you can expect ships like the NX class with Jonathan Archer and the legendary Constitution class with Captain Kirk to make an appearance. For the Klingons we can see ships like the K2 Bird of Prey or the D5 Bortos flying around the map, all excellently modeled and animated and just a joy to behold. Ages of the Federation plays differently than Star Trek Armada 3, as it focuses more on smaller fleets and more tactical gameplay, as larger fleets will suffer a penalty on overall movement and turning speed as well as firing rates, to reflect the difficulties of coordinating large fleets in the midst of battle. Damaged ships will also act like they're damaged, in that they will move a lot slower and will fire their weapons less frequently, if at all. Passive repair rates are very slow, so make sure to send them to a repair station when they suffer too much damage. Also, the antimatter they use for special abilities doesn't regenerate on its own, and can only be replenished on supply stations you can build around planets or on specific support ships. The factions here still have different playstyles to make the macro interesting, and you find that if you're playing the Federation, you'll have an early disadvantage, and it's best to avoid large-scale battles at first until you play catch-up, and eventually pass by your opponents technologically. Playing the Klingons you may benefit from early aggression, but they tend to struggle in the late game if the Federation manages to hold out that long, because of their lack in support abilities. Late game battles of attrition may become a problem for them, so most of the time when I play them, I tend to go for an early game victory, or at least limit the Federation's possibilities for expanse. Although this is only a beta, I had quite a lot of fun with it. Setting up different matches like a 3v3 Federation vs Klingon match with the AI or with some friends for a good old fashioned comp stomp is entertaining as hell. I can't wait to see the full release of it, as well as some more factions being released. In time I can see it rising to the same level of quality as Star Trek Armada 3 and even going beyond that. Thanks to Orion and the rest of the team at Stellar Parallax Productions for bringing us these amazing total conversion mods, and I personally wish them all the best with future projects. Maybe someday they'll be able to develop their own Star Trek licensed strategy game for a publisher. If they go for the same level of game quality and care for the material they showed us in these mods, I'm sure it will be an amazing game that Trekkies will talk about for years to come. But that's just some wishful thinking on my part for the moment. So in conclusion, I definitely recommend them if you have Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion. And if you don't, it's only $40 on Steam. Wait, $40? Still? Well, wishlist it then, and snap it up in a sale. If you're a strategy fan and Trekkie, these mods are your jam. Anyway, that's it for me today. Shooting the footage for this video has left me with some matches I have to finish and some Borg to stomp out of my territories. The download links for the mods are in the description, so go and have fun with them. So, did you try out these mods already? What are some of your best memories with them? Also, let me know what game setup is your favorite, like all factions free for all, or Federation Cardassian vs Borg for instance. Any other mods for Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion you want me to do a video about? Or any other Star Trek mods for that matter? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you liked the video and want to see me continue doing these in the future, be sure to like and share it and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one. Peace!